We are now live on Facebook. Yay! Lovely to. Oh, I tell you what I need to do, because I'm going to be doing some drawings, which, as you know, I love. I'm going to flip my video so that you can see things the right way around. There we go. That's better. So we're just waiting for Barbara to finish up. She's on her way. Coolio. Brilliant. So if you can see and hear us, drop us a comment, say hello.
Hello.
Give us a wave.
Can you see us?
Can't see us.
Oh yeah, here we go. Yay! Anybody out there? Hello. Oh, I have to mute myself.
Can't see anybody just yet, but I'm sure they're on their way. Oh, LJ, Emma, yay!
Hey, great to see you guys. That's awesome.
Great, fabulous.
Okay, I better put my glasses on. Everything's blurry here. I've just come from the outside. Oh, it's windy and it's cold, and I'm feeling a little bit frozen. And I was at the gym yesterday, so I can hardly move.
We don't think of it. When you think of Southern Africa, you don't think of it as being cold.
Yeah, it gets quite cold. Not as cold as it gets in your part of the world, but actually there are parts at the moment that have snow, lots of snow.
No way.
Yeah. It's a bit, the weather's gone a little bit weird, I must say.
It's bizarre.
Yeah, it really is.
Oh, Andrea's just back from the beach with her.
Hey, Andrea.
Lovely. I'm looking forward. I'm on holiday next week, so I'm looking forward to seeing the sea for a bit. It'll be nice. So that'll be super duper.
Yeah. Can't wait to see all your photographs. You're taking the dogs with you, aren't you?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Yes, they're coming too. So we won't be able to have any long walks because, as you know, they don't do long walks. But they'll do some ones. They'll be right. Shawnee, hi, how are you? Hope you're well.
Hi, Shawnee. So we have a super, super cool topic today.
Exciting.
Today is all about
winding them up to calm them down.
Exactly. Using high arousal games to teach calm. Who thinks that's a crazy idea? Put it in the chat. Let us know. Who thinks this is totally bonkers?
Yeah, who's looking at that title and thinking, what?
Now they've gone mad.
Idiots talking about now. So yeah, it is a little bit of a mad concept. No, they're all cool with it. They're all
Is
cool.
it? Okay.
They're all cool. Yeah.
I love that. You guys are awesome.
Julia and Barbara obviously know what they're talking about at all times. I'm glad you've got so much faith in us.
Yeah, I love that confidence.
I know.
That's great.
Right. So should we start?
So we'll talk a bit about how we can use tagging and high arousal games to help our dogs self-regulate. And we'll talk
Janet's here as well. Sorry to interrupt. Janet's here and she thinks we're barking mad to put this title on, and how the heck do you wind them up to calm them down? So, hi Janet, nice to see you.
Yeah, hi Janet. Freshly back from Greece. And Edgy says it makes sense to her. She raised 2 boys.
You, me both, LJ, yeah. All grown up now.
So, and then just remember that anytime, if you have questions, even if they're not about the topic, this is an opportunity. So please just put them in the chat, and then we'll do our best to reply to them. Okay, so the first thing we want to talk a little bit about is self-regulation. So our dogs need to manage their emotions and energy levels just like us, right? And the thing is that when we have dogs with big emotions or reactive dogs, they often struggle about this a bit, right? Because their threshold for excitement and stress is much lower.
Mm.
I mean, just give us a little, maybe let's a heart for anyone who has a dog who gets like super excited. Yeah, me too.
Mhm.
Do you have
Totally.
a dog that gets super, super excited?
And quite often they're really good at going from 0 to 100 straight away.
Oh,
But
that's
they,
Nicole. Hi, Nicole.
oh, brilliant. But they can't go from 0 to 50 or 30 or even 70. And once they're up there, it's really hard coming back down again, isn't it?
Yeah, it's true. So, I mean, we want to do this with some kind of plan, right?
Mhm.
Because we also, here's the thing. I didn't actually think of this when we planned the session, but
Ooh.
a lot of the people who've been following our chats and did initially when we did the festival and then the reset challenge and everything, we always talk about getting your dog more sleep, getting your dog more rest, blocking off all the triggers, and so on and so forth. So it really sounds a little bit as if we're now changing our tune, doesn't it? And oftentimes, people say, well, I have this really, or let's put it that way, when a dog is, when you have a big energetic dog or a dog with lots of energy and they express it with lunging and barking, or at home having a bark fest and running around and barking at the windows and so on, and all you want is more calm, then often, people try to give the dog just more exercise, more exercise, more exercise. And then we go and say, no, 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 your dog needs, of course, enough exercise for sure and mental stimulation, but too much can also create like mental overheating
Mm.
in the
It's
dog,
like an
right?
overload, isn't it? It's just all a bit
Exactly.
much, yeah.
Yeah. And then anyone who's heard you talk about the stress bucket and all the things that fill it and make it overflow, and too much excitement, too many good things, high arousal stuff, it all goes into the bucket. So it really sounds like, where's this now coming from?
Yeah, what are we talking about? Okay, so we know that where we're at with our reactive dogs, as Barbara just said, is that they're struggling to regulate. They get very highly aroused easily because of that threshold. And what we can do is we can create that ourselves in a way that we can control it with things like tugging and high arousal, right?
Mm.
So that's kind of what we do. Now, for me, and I don't know about any of you guys, I find myself, if I don't like go out for a long walk or I don't do some exercise, I can get quite tetchy and grumpy. And you need to have a little bit of an outlet. Now, with our dogs, we've been breeding them for thousands and thousands of years to do jobs. Except for, the odd thing like I don't know, I've forgotten the name of the one, that Pekingese, for example, that are lap dogs. But the vast majority of the dogs that we're working with have been bred to do stuff. And then we then try to shoehorn them into our human environment where they don't get the outlet for the stuff that they've been bred for. So, for example, you've got your collies who might be, they want to herd stuff, they want to do lots of all that kind of stuff, but actually we're trying to do we're trying to keep them in a urban environment. We've got our terriers that really want to catch and kill stuff. And again, we're not, that doesn't go down terribly well in our urban environment. So it's about, they need to have that outlet as well, isn't it? It's giving them, they need to have some sort of outlet too, or else they're going to go a little bit stir crazy.
Yeah. So you like to go for walks. I like to go for walks too.
Oh,
What do you
love
guys
that.
do for yourself if you feel, for your own sort of physical outlets? Do you feel that you need physical exercise, or
I
some
didn't
people...
really until, well, I think I probably did need it, but I've kind of really got into it recently. So when I go for a walk, I always feel like it's much more effective if I've kind of gone onto the top of something and that have that achievement thing. And I think there's part of that as well. It's that feeling of I've achieved a thing, I've done something. There you go, me. So do I wonder if we've got any other walkers or people?
Yeah, if you guys want to share with us what it is that you like to do to get your physical, to make you feel good, physically feel good. Do you like exercise? Maybe you don't. Maybe you just prefer to curl up on the couch with a good book. There's nothing wrong with that either.
Yeah, I have been known as well to go and punch a pillow or two. You get that real like tension and frustration, just go punch a pillow. Makes me feel better.
Okay, so here's Nicole shares that she loves to dance and to do Zumba. Yeah, Zumba's fun.
Zumba is fun.
Hiking. And Emma also loves walking through fields and the woods.
More nature. Nature's good.
Really
Love
nice.
a bit of nature.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so then obviously we already, we know that sort of exciting things like tugging or let's think a little bit about what these high arousal games, what they could be. So tugging as an example, but what else could you do with your dog that gets their excitement level up? Can you guys share in the comments what your dog gets excited about?
It's that little delay. It's kind of sometimes it's
always
quite
there. It
nice
doesn't
because
matter.
it builds a little
The
bit.
reason why it's great, I mean, we already said it's good for the dogs to burn off some energy. Obviously, we need that, right? Or the dogs do need that. We need stuff for them to burn off energy.
Oh, great. We've got a flirt pole.
Flirt pole. Chopin obviously loves that. That's nice. It's also really nice when you have a small dog like Chopin, you don't have to bend down so low, eh?
Yes, absolutely. All those chasey toys on a long string.
Emma says chasing me. Yeah, true. Yeah. No, absolutely. Chasing me, says Emma. Great one. And then Nicole shares another one, hide and seek to find me. Oh, yeah, that's my favorite too.
Oh, so Luna and Shawnee do some therapy work, visiting some children. But I'd imagine, when you've got a therapy dog, they have to stay quite calm, don't they? So that's going to be a situation where you want them, you want their arousal level to be appropriate, I suppose, to the situation. You don't want it to be like, through the
And similarly with scent work, so LG, does Bodhi get really like excited and high arousal with scent work, or is that something that keeps him focused and
so I find sniffing things, so say you do like a scatter feed or something, and for a lot of dogs that's very arousal lowering, but there are still a few dogs. I think sometimes you do have to watch it, don't you? Because there are a few dogs that it kind of gets them going a little bit.
And mine is one. Yeah. I really gets going with
totally.
And Shawnee says that Luna was pretty rambunctious today. There were some children that got her a little wound up, but she was well behaved otherwise. Good girl.
Good girly. Good girl.
Okay, well, Okay. Okay. Focused but excited, says LG. Great.
Lovely. Perfect.
And then Andrea shares working on chasing me. It's coming along. Tug is a fun one for him. He obsesses with his jolly ball, so we don't play that so much like we used to. Pre-learning how obsessing on ball is unhelpful. Okay. Yeah. And then does anybody of you play retrieve games? Tossing a ball for the dog to bring back or any other objects? Frisbee? Just curious. Because anyway, but we had some great examples. So we could do tagging. We can get the dog to chase us. We can get them to get wound up around scent work for sure. But I think we were more thinking of stuff where the dogs are really. Oh, then again, if he's following a scent trail, he's probably jogging along. He's hunting.
It's
So
different, I suppose, if you're doing like scent trails rather than
yeah, I mean,
work in a small area, isn't it?
Yeah. So anyway, Andrea says they also play Find It with toys and food. Frisbee and fetch with ball tend to be a little too exciting, says Emma. Okay. So then let's have a look. These are actually the kind of things that we were thinking of, but we're not now saying you must absolutely do this. We just want to talk a little bit about how that can be valuable.
I mean, chasing food, actually, even though food isn't in itself isn't creating high arousal, if you're bowling it and the dog's chasing it here, there, and everywhere, that can then the movement will create the high arousal.
So before we get into the examples, again, I was thinking of how, what the benefits are. So because a lot of people will share what Emma just said, that some things, the moment we get the dog to run or jump or whatever, then it gets a bit too much. And then we get a dog that nips or jumps up too much, or we struggle to get them down again. But that is exactly the point of our topic today, is how for us and also for the dogs to gain the skill of going up and coming down, going up and coming down. Because when we're out in the world and something happens and our dogs go high up with the excitement and arousal, we need them to be able to come down again. And also we need to be practiced with seeing our dogs like this and knowing what to do in order to get them back, help them come back down, right?
It's like oiling a joint, oiling the wheel, so it becomes more of a normal thing for them to do to come down again.
Exactly. And for that, they have to go up. If we never allow them to go up, they cannot practice the coming down. And we do not get used to handling our dog when they're in that stage. And it can be pretty scary, depending on the size of your dog and the way they behave.
Absolutely.
So things like playing with a tug toy or tossing something for them to retrieve. There are obviously, I mean, the value of burning off energy, we talked about that already, but then we can also teach them things like impulse control by putting some boundaries on those games, right? So that could look like teaching them to wait before they can actually chase the thing, and also for them to release a tug toy or an item, a ball or anything, or the frisbee that they've just retrieved, to let go and hand that over to us. That can be really difficult, and retrieve something right to hand. Those of you who play ball or retrieve games with your dogs, do your dogs bring the ball or whatever it is right back to your hand, or is that more of a struggle? I know some people, they like to toss a second item, right? Dog comes back, and then in order for them to drop it, they toss a second item. So I'm just curious where you find yourselves with this. Because the thing is, when we have boundaries and some control behaviors around those games, then that also helps with the mental stimulation part. So it's not just chase, right? The dogs have to actually think while they're chasing. But that is at the same time, of course, the tricky part, because when our dogs are completely over-aroused, they find it hard to go into their thinking brain. So again, when we have a reaction to something, when we have a reactive dog and they're no longer in their thinking brain, that's exactly what we're training here. Practicing to be able, when the brain's all flooded with adrenaline and whatnot, you know, to be able to rehearse the good behaviors of listening and coming back and responding to cues.
Exactly. And getting them to actually listen and think in that state of arousal. And when we talk about the bucket, this is how you make that bucket bigger. Because if they can still think, even when their arousal level increases, then that threshold before they go over is going to get that little bit further away. So this is how we make that bucket bigger. It's absolutely, it's crucial for an awful lot of reactive dogs.
Exactly. So I see there's some comments in the chat here. So
we've got some retrievers.
Yeah.
So Nicole's working on that one, getting the item brought back.
Yeah, and she does. Yes, with veg, have to break it up and ask for sit down so they aren't constantly just fixating on it, or ask for tricks in between. That's a good plan.
Yeah.
And then Sandy says she's teaching Archer to put a retrieve toy in a basket. Cool.
Lovely.
And Emma says her dog will drop a ball a few feet in front of me. Tug is not going well. He really struggles to drop it. Yeah, so we'll talk a bit more about that.
Yeah, we can put that on the list for something to talk about towards the end if we want. So Shawnee says 10-year young pup likes to run away from me with things in his mouth. It's a game. I let it continue. He has fear of noises starting to go. So anything that relaxes him to interact with me, I will do. So he's enjoying that kind of running. And this is something we've been talking about a bit, actually, isn't it, Barbara? That how much most dogs enjoy carrying something in their mouth and possessing it, and how that can be actually quite important for a lot of dogs as well. So yeah, something we've been chatting about.
Yeah, totally. So maybe so the whole thing, why, when somebody says certain games are just too exciting, or when the dogs just struggle to follow cues or respond, to owners, that sort of stuff, it's all got to do with arousal, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And something that we wanted to talk about today was that arousal curve and how that affects our dog's behavior, and also what role it plays with the winding up and coming down, winding up and coming down.
Should we have a look at the arousal curve?
Yeah, so if you would be so kind and do some drawing on your whiteboard, that would be fab.
You know that I'm always up for that, Barbara. So I'm just readjusting my camera. I think I might need more than one color for this, actually.
Oh, that would be great.
I know. I know. And I definitely need my notes so I can remember for the second part of it. This is going to be in 2 parts. So yes. Some of you may already know about the arousal curve. Okay, so it's basically it's kind of a bell-shaped curve that goes kind of like that. And we've got performance.
Yeah, arousal. That one is arousal. Performance
it will be for the second one, but I wanted to do it this way around. No,
it's arousal is on that curve. Performance.
To be honest, it doesn't matter for this part, but yeah. Because the arousal is the control bit. No, it is that way around for this bit. Because that's the dependent variable. Okay. Oops, can't spell arousal. So this is kind of your basic. And what that says to us is that as arousal increases, initially, so we start off here. And that's where we've got no arousal whatsoever. So that your dog's probably dead if that's the case. So when they're kind of asleep or really dozy, performance is still going to be super low. So, and this is a great example would be your sports dogs, your agility dogs, that kind of thing. You go up, increase the arousal, and the performance increases until you get up here, your little star, because that's kind of your ideal. That's the top performance. That is the best place to be. That's where we can't get our performance any higher. But then what happens is if the arousal then increases from here, the performance starts to drop off again. Okay, so that's why when your dog is super aroused, they stop being able to listen to you and do stuff. Okay, now I'm just going to edit it slightly, and as you said, Barbara, I'm going to put performance here, because when we take that arousal bit off, the performance takes this bell curve thing. It's a statsy thing. So that's your performance.
All right.
I'm trying to do this in capitals so you can actually read it. No, it wasn't performance. Sorry, I've done it the wrong way around. Sorry, I do beg your pardon. It's this one. So this is our arousal. Now.
Yeah, and then
this is kind of our prey sequence, isn't it?
But we haven't talked about prey sequence yet. You're rushing a little bit.
Am I rushing too far?
Yeah,
I'll leave that there and I'll come back to it in a minute.
So, so the thing with the arousal curve versus performance, the thing that we notice with dogs that when dogs are super high excited, they kind of hone in on a thing, right? And if you have a dog that really, 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 really wants to see this other dog, like a frustrated greeter or something, you know, that is hanging there at the end of their leash and jumping up and down and like, oh, they don't take in anything. They're just honing in on this dog that they want to get to or chase or scare off or whatever the motivation is for the dog. They're really high in that moment. And then you get the dogs that stress low and that start sniffing and noticing all sorts of things and wanting to hide, right? So different behaviors that we see depending on how the state of arousal is for the dog. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
And now when we think about our dogs getting really excited about chasing a thing, or when we play with our dogs, like tossing a toy or tugging a toy or whatever, those kind of games, or the retrieve games, the chase games, the tug games, they're all kind of prey games, aren't they? They're all part of, you know, hunting in the end. That's the underlying behavior. And what I find, what is really the way that with this prey sequence, it's I think the technical term is motor pattern, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I think that is because one element triggers the next element, and it's like an automatic thing. The dogs go from one element of that pattern into the next element of the pattern into the next element of the pattern. So are you guys all familiar with that, what we're talking about? Or is that the predatory motor pattern? Maybe we should just list.
Let's do that. That's a great idea. Oh.
You guys know all the elements that, just put them in the chat. They don't have to be in order. Just put them in the chat. And we can then order them. That'll be fun. And then we order them. Yeah, we can put them on that Excel. Yeah. Because I find it's really very useful
It
you know,
really is,
you look
actually.
at
It
our
really
dogs
is
behavior.
useful.
Mm.
And if you watched Tracy McLennan's interview in the festival, it was talking about prey drive and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
So that was a real cool one.
Yeah.
Have we got any in there yet? Not yet. Shall I start?
Well, I mean, one thing that happens when we're tagging,
Yeah.
some of the elements are biting,
Yeah.
right? Then chasing a toy. So chase, bite, what else?
And I need to do them in a way that I'm going to be able to fit everything in. It's going to go horribly wrong.
Well, but if you know how many there are, that might be.
What have I got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, probably 9. Will do. The thing is, it's one of those things that people quote it slightly differently, and
That's
it
true.
doesn't massively. The idea is the same.
Yeah.
Really.
Okay, so we have things like looking, eye stalking.
So we start with look, stalk. We've got 2 bites there. Yes, no, chase you talked about, so that'll be here.
Chase. Then we have grabbing to bite.
So we've got a grab bite.
And we have a kill bite.
We've got a kill bite. We do indeed.
Was that, when they shake the toy, then the terriers love doing that one. And then holding the thing, possessing it, right, is an element. And then dissecting and consuming.
So when we were talking before about the dog that enjoys carrying the stuff away, that's this bit is the possessed part. Dissect. I can never spell dissect. How many S's?
Don't ask me. I'm German. Okay.
Cool. Now I'm just going to draw some arrows so you can see that that goes to there and then that goes to there. There we go. Lovely.
And then some elements there are it's like increasing arousal, and then some are super high arousal, and then it goes down again, right? So the first 3 are sort of as the bell curve goes up. So the looking or orienting, the stalking, and
the creeping.
I like it.
I know. Look at this. Yeah. Do you know, I'm so on it with the whiteboard today.
Yeah. And then chase is pretty high up already. And then the grabby bits are sort of at the top there. And then when, holding the thing, possessing it, and then the dissecting and consuming, that's where the arousal goes down again. And the reason, any ideas why this is lowering? I mean, one of the things also that we want to keep in mind always is that the initial ones, as it goes up, there's more and more movement, right? From looking to stalking, to chasing something, and then like, wow, catching it. So the catching is really like the crown of it, no? So increasing motion and everything. So that really is increasing the arousal. And then the activity sort of goes down. So motion is as a rule of thumb, we can always remember that motion and movement tend to increase arousal, but then consuming food lowers the arousal. I know that dogs can get excited at the sight of food. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that food automatically lowers arousal, but the process of dissecting and consuming prey is one that lowers arousal. And I mean, one of the reasons.
a great way of looking at it, really, the food, is if your dog has something like a Kong or a Topple or a long-lasting natural chew, or something they've really got to think about to chew on, to eat it like that, that's kind of, you can see the arousal level going down, and that kind of fits in with this pattern, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Because that's how they would be naturally
Yeah.
eating.
And I mean, part of it is definitely because, you know, they're just getting more satiated. Is that how you say it?
Yeah.
So definitely that, you know, when they start eating, it lowers the arousal, but there is also a whole lot of endorphins. So, you know, the whole body chemistry is different in the different parts of this motor pattern. So the all that high adrenaline, the chasing and everything. And then when they start, and then they're still high when they walk around, you know, having it. Some dogs really need to walk around with the thing in their mouth because they need to kind of get down a little bit before they actually settle down and start pulling the thing apart.
And that's kind of, for them, you know, it's quite common, isn't it, with spaniels and those types of breeds, or retrievers, that kind of thing, which kind of makes sense if they're retrievers, but it's almost like that's their process that they use to start bringing themselves down. Because if they just went straight to this bit here, it's almost too far. So it's like, you know, if you're really wound up about something and then you have to do something super calm, or someone just tells you to calm down, it's really hard to do that, and it can be quite annoying. Whereas if you do something that kind of meets you where you are and then it brings down gradually, it's much easier to regulate. And I think that's something that's quite important. Just thinking that possibility. I am liking that diagram very much.
Great.
I'm going to
Really
keep
great.
it there now. I'll just sit here in the corner.
It's a bit of a spaghetti. I mean, not that it's confusing or anything.
I'm a little bit irritated that I've got two of the lines crossing over. That's annoyed me a bit. I might have to do something about that.
So do we have any questions at this point?
Iris has just put
Comments.
a comment in. Billy's pattern for chasing deer in the garden is sniffing the ground, then sniffing the air, then sniffing the ground at speed, trying to locate where it comes from, spotting whatever, howling and chase. I need to get his attention no later than air sniffing to redirect. And it is interesting because the pattern can look slightly different for different dogs. And there are some for which a particular stage will be super short or even not really there, and then there are some for which particular stages will become more elongated.
Yeah,
So
but that is pretty. I mean, first of all, I just want to say, Iris, it's amazing that you
know that
you understand what's going on so well, that you know exactly what's happening, that you can isolate all these elements, and that you know when you have to step in order to get his attention. Because the thing is, when they're in full blast, when they're just going through this thing, when the adrenaline is pumping, it's really hard for them to disengage, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and then Janet was asking about stalking.
I think she was just that was when we were asking for parts of the pattern.
Oh, okay, cool.
I think that was
That's
it.
clear.
But Emma has asked a question, which is a great question, Emma. So Emma has a spaniel, and he really struggles to drop the toy. So is his arousal likely too high, and he needs to hold it for a bit first?
That's a really good
It's a
question.
great question. I like that question.
Yeah, I like that a lot. So yeah, so the here's the thing. So this motor pattern is like a theoretical thing in a way, right? It's like a what do you call it? Like a the whole sequence, and it's not a theoretical thing. It's a way to describe a natural biological process. And if you have, you know, animals in the wild, like jackals here for us, for example, jackals, they would go through all the elements in that sequence. But over the what's it, thousands of years that dogs have been bred into for different jobs and different functions. What has happened in the breeding and selection process is that different parts of this pattern have been highlighted for particular breeds, right? And for retrieving dogs like gun dogs, like spaniels, the possess part is definitely highlighted.
Absolutely.
Amongst others, right? But it's definitely highlighted. And now all the dogs might have it, but some dogs have stronger possession than other dogs. So it makes total sense. And then letting them have a thing like, or what can happen if we continuously like taking things away then from them is that can create frustration. So I'm not talking about resource guarding necessarily, but it can lead to that, of course. But the thing is, we're trying to play highly arousing games with tugging and retrieve games and whatever. And then the dog is like super amped up. And then we say, okay, end of game. And we take the toy and we put it away. And our dog is kind of like, oh, you got brakes. So sometimes we can really help our dogs cool down at the end of, or when we want to end a really highly arousing play session. So during the session, it's nice to put boundary games in them, things in there like making sure that they can let go, making sure that they have stimulus or self-control, that we can give them cues or give them permission to play joyfully, right? All really joyfully and playfully, but they don't go wild and just grab and we get bitten in the process. So we want them to say, okay, you want this toy, can you sit or whatnot and have it, or a down, or just a hand target, or just wait, literally just wait, and then you can have it. And then equally that they can let go of the thing when asked. But sometimes, and for some dogs, it's also really nice to play in a way where we don't ask them to let go, where they can hold the toy and we can still have them, encourage them to move around with us. Maybe even if you like I like them to jump up with the toy and I touch them and we jump and we still playing, but my dogs can still hold the toy and they don't always have to let go. So I'm not always tagging and fighting, because that can be really high arousal. Sometimes I just let them have it. So I'm still sort of in the exciting bit, but they can keep holding it. And then if you want to wind your dog down, you want to find a transition. If that's hard for you and your dog, you can find a transition to go from holding the toy to food games. So that we can get them to go through that dissecting and consuming bit of the pattern. So maybe, Julia, you want to talk a bit about what that could look like? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, there are various different things you can do to get that kind of dissecty consume thing. And I've been doing a few of them actually with my little monkeys. So I mean, there are, of course, toys that you can get where you can put, I quite like those sort of, the clam type toys with the Velcro on, because they can really tear those apart, or things that they can pull things out of, or even, and I think this is something you were talking about the other day, Barbara, was, using like a paper bag or something like that, so that they actually are actively getting the food out. So that is taking the place of the dissect. It's giving them some brain work. It's giving them a little puzzle, like, how the heck do I get this out? They've got to concentrate on it. So you can see how that's then going to bring that arousal level down.
And I mean, not all dogs want to or need to go through the whole dissecting thing. I mean,
No, absolutely
definitely
not.
for some that is stronger. I know that mine now, for example, he loves dissecting stuffs and de-stuffing toys and tearing things apart and so on. But we also do games where he's just retrieving, or we playing tug, and I don't want him to tear apart my tug toy, and I don't want him to mouth, a retrieve item or something like that. But we can still we can still have different levels of how we play these games and make sure that our dogs, you know, don't have to go through the frustration of always letting go, number one. So, you know, we use these games in between. And then the other thing is simply rewarding the dog for bringing you something with food.
Yeah, so simple.
Right. So the reward for a retrieve doesn't always have to be another chase. Of course, the dogs love that. And you can do that. But after a few repetitions of rewarding by sending the dog out again with the thing, you know, they go high, high, high. And then what we can do is towards the end, we say, okay, well, here's a cookie for the thing, right? Or you can just hold it for a bit and follow me around. So we basically winding the game down and then maybe transition from that wild game into a scatter feed or a round of It's Your Choice, if that's a game that you like playing, right? Something
Those are great.
that
Those sorts of games like It's Your Choice, I think are brilliant for helping that arousal level to come down. So good.
Yeah. So that really helps prevent the frustration that might be there when we kind of like wow, 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 and then we take the thing away and there's like nothing. Does that sound, how does that sound, guys? Can we hear a bit about how you feel?
And then we can talk about Sandy and the Toad.
Sandy and the Toad.
Yes.
I've missed it. Let me see. Yes.
It's just in the comments. It's just an interesting one, I think. So Archer grabbed a toad, ran around, foaming mouth. She was worried it was a cane toad because they're toxic. He wouldn't drop it. He was aroused. So drama, had to take the hose to his mouth, isolate him, scoop up the toad, took 3 people. Luckily, it was a non-toxic toad and everybody survived. What do you think was going on there with Archer in terms of the arousal level with the toad? I've got a couple of ideas.
Well, I mean, my first thought is that I'm hoping you weren't playing tug or retrieve games with the toad.
No, look,
I know you were. I know you were not. I know you were not. I was just couldn't help it. Sorry. So the thing is, this is really why the stuff we just talked about is so useful.
Exactly.
So the more we play with our dogs about chasing a thing, picking up a thing, bringing us a thing, and dropping a thing into our hands, right? The easier it is for the dogs to do that in an incident like this. So the toad, of course, I mean, that's like super scary with something that is potentially toxic. But, you know, I also wouldn't want my dog to run around with anything and play stay away because I haven't practiced enough. Bring me things, right? So, I mean, even with the puppies, it's really useful to have that they are used to dropping things and getting something else for them. So that's where it already starts. And then the thing of, and the more we practice at home, the more we practice, bring it to me or whatever your cue is, the easier, the more rehearsals we have of that at home, the more we do this, even in low arousal, the better chance we have when the dog is in high arousal. But now with our high arousal games, we can even practice with the dog that is highly aroused. Does that make sense? It was a little bit of a blurb.
So what you could do then, say, because of course, remember with the cur, the possess is still quite high up, you know, particularly, you know, that's going to start high up, particularly when you've got a novel object and particularly when the people around are going, oh my God, what's he got in his mouth? It's a toad, blah, 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 which is a totally normal response. But of course, it's going to increase the general arousal level of everybody, really. So it's still quite a high up thing. So if you can practice doing that, you know, the drop, the retrieve, whatever. So maybe do a bit of a tug game, for example, then do some retrieve and some drops and things, and then maybe do a little bit more of a tug going. So you're controlling how high up that arousal level's going, and see when he can still cope. At what point can he still cope? And that's the point that you're working at now. And in time, that will then, you'll be able to bring the arousal level up that little bit further. That's the plan anyway.
And then Leah just made a comment here about Marshall. He used to severely resource guard, so we would give him a food reward to drop items. Now he actively searches for items, brings them to us, shows just a bit of the item and won't drop it until he gets a treat. Side, a bit of a reinforcing pattern, but where we are at. Yeah, it's a bit of a reinforcing behavior chain that's happened. So what would you recommend to progress now further on? Because it's great. It's definitely better. You've definitely made progress from the resource guarding. So this is great, right? Definitely a better place to be at. Always celebrate. Always celebrate, that there's progress. But Julia, what would you suggest
for me
as a next step to move forward from this?
When you get that stage where you're getting your dog to give you a thing, so you're doing an out or a cue or a drop, or they're just doing a retrieve, you don't want to leave it, it shouldn't take too long before, when you give a cue, for example, say you have an out cue, that they release it without you having to offer the treat first. So you want to use, I would be sort of trying to bring that cue in to drop it. I would still at this stage reward following the cue, so that cue is really solid. And then you could do things like, you could maybe you might use a different thing as a reward for doing the right thing. So you might use some play or something like that instead of a food reward. That might work. What are you thinking, Barbara?
No, spot on. The same thing.
Yeah. I'd definitely be looking at that verbal and getting that really strong. I think that's what we do. Yeah.
And for that, it's vital that it's no longer a trade.
Oh, he's deaf. He's deaf.
Well,
so
it doesn't have to be a verbal. It can be a
Yeah.
hand sign. It can be a touch. It can be
Yeah.
any kind of cue. But rather than trading, so the difference is between him seeing the food reward or smelling the food reward and then letting go in order to eat that. So he waits until he sees or smells the food reward, or it becoming a game where there is a particular signal, he lets go of the thing, and then that letting go creates the food, so to speak. So he needs to in order to make food appear, he first has to let go.
Yeah.
That's what Julia means by creating a cue, and whether that's a verbal or a tactile or a hand signal, it doesn't matter, but just something, and then when they let go, they get the cookie. Of course, what you can do is simply introduce the cue first, because you know that he will let go when he sees the food, right? So not say
it's one of the very few things that you do introduce the cue really early, isn't it? Like right from the very start, the cue's there. And I don't do that very often, but this one, I think I would, yeah. Keep that cue there.
I don't think I do.
Don't you?
Because tagging is so important to me. I really want my dogs to be good taggers. And what can happen is if you introduce the drop too early, is then they lose the desire to grab and hold on to the thing. So I first get real desire to possess and grab the thing, and then I think
what I'm saying,
I mean, it depends on the outcome.
When I'm wanting them to drop it, I would put the cue on straight away rather than getting the behavior first and then.
Oh, I see what you mean.
I see what you mean. There.
Okay.
So
yeah, you're right. You're right. You say the word, you produce food.
Yeah, exactly.
Food creates the behavior, because otherwise you can't create the behavior.
Right?
Yeah.
Because they become too reliant.
So Leah,
closely with the food rather than anything else.
What you could do now is have a really wow factor food reward hidden, so that you can show your cue and then quickly produce that food right there on the nose. So that cue, and then, oh, what's that? Right? So that it's just more noticeable for the dog. Anyway.
So now Sandy said about Archer, once he gets the prize, he's over the top aroused. I think that's, really common. And if he's got his catch, the high value treats aren't cutting it. And the information that's giving you is to try and create lower levels of arousal and see if you can work on your drop at that point and gradually increase, once he can do it, gradually increase the levels of arousal, because this is very much a bucket issue. If his bucket is full because he's caught the thing, you're not going to be able to get him to do the drop. So we need to make the bucket bigger so that then we can get the drop. I hope that helps.
Yeah. And very fittingly, Alexandra just shared she uses a bucket. She uses a bucket for that. So a physical bucket. And the cool thing about the play bring and then drop it in a bucket is that it really becomes, you have a bigger target zone for the dog than just the hand, but also, and there is no pulling. The dog is just bringing it and dropping it into the bucket. So it's like teaching a trick. And as with all these things, we want to practice. We want to set the dog up for success, right? So what can we do to practice the release of the toy or the prize in practice that? How can we set the dog up for success in practicing that? And we can choose different items. So for a dog that, so when say we have a dog that really loves to tug and they find it really, really hard when aroused to let go of the tug toy. I mean, lots of us have seen it, no? Teeth shatter and they can hardly let go of the thing. And then you go back to just playing the let go thing with a boring toy and you just have them hold it. There's no throwing, there is no chase, there's no nothing. The dog is just sitting, you let them hold the thing, make sure they understand what holding means, and then introduce the cue and they drop it and then they get reinforced. Similarly, I'm pretty sure, I mean, Alexandra, when you introduce the drop it in a bucket, we don't start, I'm sure you didn't start with the dropping and the barking after a 50-meter retreat or, lots of chasing a toy and stuff. You start maybe in the living room and it's just a pickup and a drop in the thing. So it's a similar. If we always just try to teach the dog to let go of something at the end of the super exciting game, really feeding into all the prey sequence stuff and the arousal, then that's the moment when it's super hard. So we want to try and practice this in other scenarios, and we want to try and make those easier and less arousing for the dog. Does that make sense? It's one of my favorite games. Yeah, there you go. It's like a trick. It's like shaping a trick and not, I mean, if I tossed a ball and then the dog comes back with a ball and we're holding a bucket out, they wouldn't know what to do. Brilliant. I love that. I must say I've completely failed. I've always wanted my dogs to tidy up, to put it in baskets, but I have so far not taught them that properly.
Maybe with the next puppy. Right. So
Emma loves the bucket drop. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Really cool one. Yeah.
Brilliant. So just a couple of things before we finish. You'll have seen that we've got Walks Without Worry available again for anyone that hasn't signed up for that. It's so well worth
Yeah,
it. Really,
it's
really
super.
is a cool one. So you'll have had a couple of emails with links in. There's also a post in the Facebook group with a link in. So do feel free. And then the other thing is, because we've had such a really cool response to our diagnostic call, so that's 90 minutes of both our brains on just you and your dog. So it's been absolutely brilliant. So we've created some more times, so that you can book those as well.
After you come back from holiday.
After I come back from my holiday. Yeah, so from a week on Monday. So those you can book again if you get the emailed newsletter. Down at the bottom there's a link there where you can book them. We'll also pop some stuff in the Facebook group if you want to book one of those as well. Do feel absolutely free, because it gives us a great opportunity to get to know you a little bit better personally as well, which is blooming lovely.
Yeah, really fun. Really been enjoying it a lot.
They are really good, aren't they? Really good.
Julia, where are you going on holiday?
I'm going to,
but I've forgotten.
I'm staying in England. I'm going down to Somerset, so that's sort of down towards the southwest.
Can't wait to see your pictures.
Yeah, it should be lovely. It's not so much, we just sort of picked it a bit randomly, really, because we found a nice place that took dogs and didn't have. I hate staying on holiday with the dogs in places that's got loads of carpet. Just because if they get mucky, it stresses me out. So I much prefer to bring a few like rugs and things and to have solid floors. So I do that instead. So yeah, it looks really lovely. It's nice and secure, so it should be cool. Should be fun.
Awesome.
So yeah, poor old Barbara is going to be all by herself next week. I'm going to be honest.
I've got lots of people. Everybody here is going to be here. I'm not going to be by myself.
That's true. That's true. We've got all the chaps.
Yeah. Well, thanks very, very much, guys, for joining us tonight and being here and commenting and asking questions and making super suggestions as well. It's really great to the more minds get together, the better we can help each other, right? So thanks so much.
So we're not going to do a live next week, but there will be one the week after.
Yeah.
So we'll see you then.
Okay.
Bye.